Hello, everyone. My name is Nehal Nangia, and I lead learning and leadership research at the Josh Bersin Company. Before we dive deep into the topic of leadership, let's first take a look at the macroeconomic context of why leadership and the topic of leadership development is so important today. What started as the Great Resignation in 2020 continues to be a phenomenon that still rages in full swing. The quit rate, which is the percentage of people who voluntarily quit their jobs every month, is at an all time high. Almost 3% of the workforce is quitting each month. 12 threes are 36. That's more than a third of the workforce leaving their jobs this year. And of them, two-thirds do not have another job lined up. They're exhausted. They don't want to commit their time and lives to work or businesses where they don't feel they have trust and control over what might suddenly hit them one fine day. We wanted to understand what keeps people from quitting. What is it that has the highest impact on driving engagement and retention and creating an employee experience that will make people stay? So we did an enormous study on employee experience. We studied close to 100 practices that impact employee experience. And here's what we saw. These are the top 15 most impactful practices. And if you look closely, you'll see those yellow icons dominating, which are all practices related to trust in the organization. 10 out of the 15 most impactful employee experience practices have to do with trust in the organization, transparency, empathy, integrity, and an inclusive, positive work environment. Bottom line is, people today need to trust the organization. And this context is extremely important for our webinar today because in every organization, it is leaders, after all, that are the vehicle for building trust in the organization, especially in a volatile business environment today, making the topic of leadership more important than ever before. Okay, I really love this quote. I recently came across it and it really resonated. It says, in the industrial era, jobs were about the muscles, how strong you are. Then, with the internet and digitalization, came the era of how smart you are, being a knower, being right. But in the future, jobs will be all about the heart, how much you care. And that is absolutely true for leadership today and in the future. And building on this idea of trust and care and empathy is this notion of human centered leadership. You might wonder that there is no such thing as leading without thinking about humans, but every single leadership situation, decision, meeting, and every behavior that a leader exhibits at work can be thought of as two parts. There's the business part. What is the decision or action that we need to take to improve the performance of the company or team or product or whatever that is? And then there's the human side. What can we do or should we do to make the team more effective, to make the individual more effective, to help them learn, to give them an environment where they can innovate and grow? And what we've learned, especially from the pandemic, is that during good times, you can focus on the left. But during uncertain times and stressful times of change, you have to focus on the right. Organizations need to build leaders who care. You need to build leaders across generations, regions, career levels, across every function, team, or segment in your organization. And you need to support leaders on how to be more empathetic, more sensitive, and more inclusive than ever before. You need to teach your leaders to care because, believe it or not, the number one reason why people leave, as you can see on my screen, is having leaders who don't care. Now, let's take a closer look at the people or the workforce. The workforce today is multi-generational and more diverse than ever before. Whether it is a baby boomer who may be an idealist, or a Gen X who values individualism, or a millennial who might deeply question things, or a Gen Z who loves constant communication. The leadership capabilities that matter the most for each group, whether you are a leader or what you desire to see in your leader. We found in our research that they all indeed value the same leadership capabilities. So, what are these leadership capabilities that matter? In the old days, if you looked at leadership models, they would typically talk about things like customer centricity, innovation, execution, accountability, teamwork. They're all very important, but they don't necessarily create behaviors that drive trust, care, and belonging. They tell you what you need to do, but they're less about how you need to act and behave. The leadership capabilities that matter the most today are what we call power skills. And I'll give you some context on where these came from. There's this group at UC Berkeley called the Greater Good Science Center, and this particular group studies happiness. And they've defined characteristics or words that create happiness, which are some of the words that you can see on my screen. These are what we call the power skills of growth. These are not soft skills. They're power skills, and these are the skills that every leader needs. And we need to reinforce these skills in every way possible, recognize and reward these skills, and make them a core element of our culture because these are the behaviors you want to foster in your leaders and potentially in everyone who could be a leader. All right, so how do we build these new skills? How do we build them at scale for everyone in the organization? How do we build this new breed of multi generational leaders? And also, how do we personalize leadership development? What we recommend and endorse as a holistic approach to leadership development is what we refer to as the 6 E's. The first E is envision. You need to start with a clear vision. What does good leadership look like in your organization? Leadership models are unique to every organization and they must mirror the culture, mission, and values that you stand for. Then the education piece comes in where you need to put in place formal trainings and programs to ensure all leaders know how to get things done and also how to lead people. So, for getting things done, you need to train them on products, programs, processes, policies. And to lead people, they need coaching on performance management, goal setting, how to give meaningful feedback, and how to mitigate biases. But just education isn't enough because studies tell us that in barely over a period of 24 hours, people forget 70% of what they learn. So you need to cement learnings from the formalized trainings and education through experiences that will help them apply those learnings in the flow of work. So you need to think about job rotations, developmental assignments, stretch assignments, and international jobs. While some people are born leaders, but most people learn it over time through experiences. And by doing it, and organizations need to facilitate that. The next piece is exposure. Some of the best lessons in leadership come from observing, talking with, and getting feedback from others. Organizations need to create access to coaches and mentors and exposure to outside companies and senior executives. Vendors like CoachHub can, in fact, allow you to have access to a huge network of coaches in an affordable and scalable way, making this kind of tailored exposure an opportunity for everyone in the organization, not just a rarefied experience reserved for top of the REM executives. And then another important piece is evaluation. This is tricky because, particularly if you aren't a good leader, people will rarely ever have the courage to tell you that you're not a good leader. So, we need feedback tools to keep us honest. Often, we need some forms of psychological or other forms of assessments to see where we have blind spots. Coaches can help leaders self reflect and understand where they have rough edges, and they can help them be better leaders. Now, the final piece, once you've created a common language and understanding around what good leadership means for your organization, and you've given your leaders the development they need to build those skills, what next? You also need to empower your leaders with tools, insights, and resources that they need to be effective. Now, if we need leaders who will empathize and care for our workforce, we need to start with caring for our leaders and ensuring that we are creating capacity for them rather than adding to their existing workloads. So, we need to empower and equip our leaders with tools that will provide them with insights in an easy and consumable way. So, think about team health dashboards, action platforms, and productivity tools. So essentially, you need to start with defining leadership. What does it mean for your organization? Then you need to develop critical leadership skills. You need to foster the right behaviors. And then you also need to empower and equip your leaders with tools and resources to lead effectively. Ultimately, what we're saying is traditional leadership development, which followed a stepwise architected process, does not work anymore. You need to build leaders at every level, Leadership development today is a critical enabler of business outcomes, and organizations need to build leadership capabilities for everyone in the organization. All right, the last thing I want to quickly talk about before I wrap it up is the role of technology. The leadership development tech market is exploding with solutions all the way from personalized one on one coaching to live cohort based or group coaching, AI based coaching, and nudge technology for behavior change. The metaverse, AR, VR, and simulation based platforms, they're redefining leadership development, and they're in fact very powerful in helping leaders develop difficult interpersonal skills. Then there are platforms that are not really leadership development tools, but they're a new breed of performance management tools. They allow agile goal settings. They show real time performance data about individuals and teams. They inform leaders. They help them understand where leaders need to focus. And we call them action platforms. Of course, we're flooded with content providers that deliver many types of self help or self directed learning resources on leadership. And then there are platforms that allow pairings with huge networks of coaches like CoachHub. The coaching market is particularly flourishing right now. And the fact is, when we asked 8,000 HR professionals in our global capability assessment on what developmental opportunities they value the most, coaching surfaced as the most valued development opportunity. With that, I'll hand it over to our panel to dig deeper on how they're operationalizing these new models of leadership, building these new capabilities, and developing leaders in today's diverse multi generational workforce. Thank you, everyone.